Greetings, salutations. Welcome to this prophetic insights where we analyze current events as they are fulfilling Bible prophecies. Safe to Serve International, first time viewers, welcome one, welcome all to this prophetic insights. Well, we have come to this first day of the week. Yes, brothers and sisters, Sunday, July 17th, 2022. And by God's grace, we want to focus on some very pertinent things this afternoon here, friends, as we're focusing on the enemy without is the enemy within. Once more. And control is the name of the game. Yes, my friends, making people paupers, even government paupers, is the name of the game. Destroying people's freedoms, yes, it is the name of the game. And that's what we want to focus on throughout this prophetic insights. Well, my friends, how many of you are aware of this book called The Secret Terrorist? The Secret Terrorist by Seventh-day Adventist pastor, evangelist Bill Hughes. Secret Terrorist. There it is, my friends. Very, very important book for us to consider in these closing scenes of Earth's history. And as we go throughout this, I also want to focus on a particular book, another one, and that is the book, The Ministry of Healing. So stay tuned as I get to this content here, friends. Very, very important. Now, I want to say this. We're looking at the book Secret Terrorist, and in this book, Pastor Bill Hughes quoted extensively from G. Edward Griffin. All right. The creature of Jekyll Island. G. Edward Griffin. And Stansberry Research interviewed G. Edward Griffin. And friends, here are a few of the comments below that video on YouTube. And again, I'm not going to spend much time here. I don't like to read comments like this. But for this purpose, I'm going to do it. It says, this man, says Big Bob, this man has sounded the alarm for more than 40 years, and most ignored him. Some laughed at him, but he was right all along. We now witness things happening that we are said or were said to be highly unlikely, and yet here we are. For the lack of sound money, we allowed politicians to steal us blind. Melissa wrote, wow, he's 90. So well spoken and with it. Looking forward to reading his Jekyll Island book, which I've been hearing about quite a bit during my foray into learning about economics and finance. Sam wrote, Part 2. Thank you. Griffin needs at least 2 parts. Best guest ever. Griffin woke up so many people, including many people who would go on to wake up millions more. He's a pioneer, researcher, and truth-seeking legend. God bless G. Edward Griffin. Now, friends, in that interview, G. Edward Griffin mentioned something very, very important. And this is somewhat of a side point, but I want to put this in the record. He mentioned the merchants of the earth, the bankers. And we shall see who the puppet master is, the chief puppet master. But the bankers and merchants, they practice what he calls predatory loans. Yes, take a listen to this, my friends.
The banks have a predator practice of loaning in third world countries. They'll go in and say, well, we got this $100 million of loan you can have if you want to build your infrastructure, you want roads, you want to drill for oil, you want to build a dam and get some hydroelectric power for your people, all of this. But we have the money, we'll loan it to you.
Right.
Time and time again, these little countries go for that. What they don't realize what the bankers that loan the money do realize is that the terms of the loan are so generous and so enticing that the amount of money borrowed is far in excess of what the project can earn and repay. So there's a built-in time bomb to most of these loans because they know in advance that these countries, at some point, they're going to run out of cash to be able to pay the interest on the loans.
My friends, just think about Jamaica and other islands, even the United States of America. And that's why we're told, brothers and sisters, I want to put this in the record here. Now he continues. Listen.
Now we get a little more careful when we go back and look at the contracts. Oh, look at this fine print down here at the bottom of page 87. It says if you cannot pay the loans, well, then we can move in and take your property, including your land, including your factories. And we, the banks, will get everything. And you will be left out there saying, what happened to me? And that's predatory loaning or lending. And it's quite prevalent in today's world. So yeah, you're getting the idea that I'm not very high on the banking industry.
And of course,
I got that for sure.
Yes, definitely. Because we're told, my friends, in Revelation 18, verse 2 through verse 4, that Mystery Babylon, the papacy, the primary puppet master, she is in league, in bed with the merchants of the earth, the bankers. And that's what we're told in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse number 10, where the Bible says, my friends, the love of money is the root of all evil. As the colloquial saying says, follow the money. Follow the money. And we're told in Proverbs 22 and verse number 7, the Bible says that the borrower is servant to the lender. Servant, that's worship. To serve, that's worship. Matthew chapter 4 and verse number 10, Jesus said to Satan, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, him only shalt thou serve. Let's turn now and look at the BRICS nations. Yes, BRICS, that is an acronym. Brazil, BRICS. Yes, Russia, India, BRICS. C stands for, and S stands for South Africa. C is China, the BRICS. Here it is, brothers and sisters, there it is. And what is their goal? It's clear. To overthrow the US dollar. But why? I'll get to it. Why? There it is. China, Russia, brewing up a challenge to the dollar's dominance by creating a new reserve currency. And this is what Fed Chairman Powell said. Rapid changes are taking place. Listen again.
Looking forward, rapid changes are taking place in the global monetary system that may affect the international role of the dollar in the future. Most major economies already have or are in the process of developing instant 24/7 payments.
So what's the excuse for the US CBDC? He just told you that is a veneer, an excuse, a camouflage, a US digital dollar, which, my friends, it spells tyranny. That question was posed to G. Edward Griffin in that interview. Listen.
Reserves, Putin himself advocating that BRICS economies should be looking at creating an international reserve currency using a basket of their own currencies. You know, we're seeing the Saudis, Israelis move away from the US dollar. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this movement that we're seeing to dethrone the US dollar.
Listen. They, as famous as G. Edward Griffin is, he doesn't see all the points. We who have the biblical foundation, prophetic foundation, can see, as it were, in darkness. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 19. Out of all the nations who are leaguing, forming an alliance, a confederacy to overthrow the U.S., overthrow the U.S. dollar, he mentioned China. Why China? I'll play this and then I will give the commentary afterward.
the other reason for wanting to take the US dollar out is because some of those nations really don't like us very much, like China. It's a harsh thing to say, but it's true that in China, they still teach at the military academies of Uncle Sam being Uncle Sam being enemy number one. And all of their strategy, long-range strategy planning, is to weaken, ultimately to destroy the United States.
There you have it. But why China? There it is, my friends, because China is the primary nation that is implementing the Roman Catholic social teaching called the common good. So friends, since China wants to dethrone the US, and China is a primary model for the Roman Catholic social teaching called common good, it is safe to state, my friends, that Paupery is the chief puppet master behind China's aggression. There it is, brothers and sisters. And what is that Roman Catholic social teaching common good? It is Sunday worship by law. There it is again. Why does Paupery hate the US system of capitalism and China and other nations? Why? Pauper says it destroys Sunday worship. All right, you're seeing it, friends. Calling capitalism the dung of the devil. Well, Mr. Pope, if you did not know yourself, well, you are the Pope's right-hand man. That's it. Calling for a new economic order. And then he's going to mention that it was capitalism that actually suppressed Sunday worship. So we must overthrow the U.S. Constitution, overthrow its economic foundation. All right. Now, G. Edward Griffin went on to mention not only the enemy without, meaning BRICS and other nations and so on, China and so on, but that same enemy is the enemy within. Why do I say that? Because the bankers, the merchants are in bed with Paupery. That's what the Bible teaches. Revelation 18 verse 3. No wonder, pause, no wonder. One of the first and final thing that Christ did during his earthly ministry is to cleanse the temple. And by inference and by implication, to cleanse the nation of the money changers, the bankers. That's John 2, Luke 19. It's all there. Matthew 21. It's all there. The money changers, the bankers, the merchants. And that led to the crucifixion of Christ and the persecution of Christ's followers. As it was at the first advent, so it's going to be at the second advent of Christ. Let's get to him now. Listen what he says.
The real crux of the issue that you've raised, I believe, is that even the United States now is, and the central banks in the US, the Federal Reserve System, even those units are actively trying to destroy the US dollar. And that's quite an interesting fact. You look at the amount of money that's being created in the last 2 years since this COVID was put upon us. Why? Everything can be done now in the name of fighting COVID, and nobody questions whether it's economically sound. Now we see the American experts themselves doing terribly rash and foolish things, which predictably will destroy the US dollar.
And there you have it, my friends. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell warns that government debt is on an unsustainable path. With that in mind, now G. Edward Griffin is going to mention now another enemy within. Yes, and that is the World Economic Forum movement. He's going to mention many of the leaders of various nations. They sit under the World Economic Forum, and then the World Economic Merchants, the World Economic Forum is also a system of merchants, political leaders, financiers. And who do they bow to? knowingly, unknowingly, directly, indirectly. Revelation 18 verse 2 through verse 3. Mystery, Babylon the Great. Revelation 17:18. She reigns over the kings of the earth. Listen again. Watch.
And we finally come to the answer to the question of why are they doing that when we take a good look at this thing called the Great Reset. Now let's just take a moment on that. So now we know the World Economic Forum, which boasts of its membership of being the very top people in all the major countries of the world. Many of those have their prime ministers and top government officials as graduates of the World Economic Forum. So this is no small deal. They meet every year in Davos, Switzerland, and they talk about things exactly like this. What are we going to do for the future of the world? Do we want to continue the money the same, or do we want to change it? What about cryptocurrencies? What about social credit systems that China has? And they talk about these things constantly, and they come away with certain agreements among themselves, unofficial agreements. They never go through the governments or through the legislatures of these governments. These are agreements that are done at these private meetings, and they're done by the very top people. And those top people don't think that they have to be beholden to the voters of their countries in which they were born, in which they now lead. So,
all right. You could tell this man knows what he's talking about. He has done his research, even at 90 average age. And remember, my friends, we have played ad nauseum on this platform the statement from Klaus Schwab stating that most of these leaders of nations and the cabinet members belong to the World Economic Forum, and they are changing policies to suit the agenda. Here it is again. You know what? Listen.
Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room.
Don't worry. Your day's coming. It's coming from the World Economic Forum, track and trace. You know what? I have no time for this right now. Move on from that. And of course, listen.
Torres warns that the EU's new digital ID is the next step in a process in which the government in Brussels will micromanage every aspect of people's lives.
This is what makes the difference between a tyranny and democracy. When you know everything about what your government does, that's democracy. When the government knows everything about you, that is tyranny.
Is that what the World Economic Forum is all about? Listen again.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Yes, only somebody who is a buffoon would believe that. It's already here. And friends, now comes the great question. Why would the enemy without, the same enemy within, would try to destroy the US dollar? The answer is to bring about control, to bring about tyranny.
Correct.
So they're thinking globally now. And it's clear that when you go to the World Economic Forum and you see what they're talking about and their recommendations and their predictions for the future, you have the answer to this question. They want all money to be gone. Their plan is the banker's dream, a cashless society. Nobody has any money. What you have are units in a bank account completely managed by the banks. And those number of units will serve as the kind of money, but they won't be money that you can put in your mattress or that you can earn by striking a contract on a free market basis with somebody. All contracts have to be gone through the banks and through the government.
Has to go through their hands. And that's why we're told tyranny is coming. There you have it, friends. The chief puppet master. Tyranny is coming. It's interesting that many of the measures that are now in place in the Panda Nation, Hope you caught that. The Panda Nation. Those policies which are draconian, inimical to our liberty of conscience, have now moved from the Far East and have now come to the West, even in the United States of America. It tells us, brothers and sisters, who is the chief instigator behind the policies of the Panda Nation, the puppet master there in the Vatican. Listen to this about low credit score system.
If you have a low social credit score, meaning like people like myself who are critical of these things, we will have a very, very low social credit score. And people like us and people like you and people like many of our neighbors and friends who aren't aware of this yet will find themselves in a position where if they speak against their leaders in any way or express dissatisfaction in any way with what is going on, they will be deprived of their ability to buy things. They'll be deprived of their ability to travel. Their food quotients will be reduced. They won't be able to buy gasoline. They won't have the money to pay for rent or roof over their heads. They won't be able to buy food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education. They'll be frozen out of society, and we will have reached a kind of master control over the whole population of the world that has never been even imagined until fairly recently. So that's my answer to your question. The reason that the world is against money is because they want to replace it with social credit system. That's the short answer to all of that.
Mercy. Friends, he doesn't even know that he's quoting the principle in the book Maranatha, page 162. He mentioned you can't travel, you can't buy grocery, you can't buy clothing, you can't buy gasoline. In Maranatha, page 162, we're told human laws will be made so stringent that men and women will not dare observe the seventh-day Sabbath for fear of wanting food and clothing. They will join with the world. For fear of wanting food and clothing, they will join with the world in transgressing God's laws. Now, I won't spend time on this video.
Now,
past that. Listen again as he wraps this up. Now he's going to talk about the purpose of the CBDC, the central bank digital currency here in America and globally, is to make individuals government paupers. And who is behind the government based on prophecy? The Vatican, Pauper, and her allies. Speak to us, Griffin.
No, and I see the path as clear as day towards the digital dollar. Help me understand this. When you say even the Fed wants to destroy the dollar, though, why do you need to destroy the dollar to get to the cashless system?
Well, because as long as the dollar exists, people will have large amounts of it. Not only the bankers, but a lot of people outside of the banking community have inheritances. They have corporations, they have businesses that they're running, and they can be independent. And so that independence has got to be removed. And that's the same reason the family has to be removed.
Yep.
Because they want people totally dependent on the state for every minute aspect of their lives.
Oh, brothers and sisters. And even here, ad nauseum, I have shared that they are using the actual scene, scenario, incident, yes, the same model, the same measure. How many synonyms should I use? Of what Joseph used down there in Egypt. There it is. You know what? I have no time for this right now. My time is running. Get off my screen. Come on. Let's get to it.
CBDC.
All right. Here it is, friends. In chapter 47 of Genesis, when money failed in the land of Egypt, what led to money failing? There you have it, my friends. Joseph gathered up all the money. What does that mean today? You have inflation, and then what? You increase, yes, the federal funds rate, the Fed rate. The interest rate is that going on right now. Then money failed. And what happened, my friends? The people became government paupers. It's right there, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, it's right there. They sold their land. You remember? It's 2030. You own nothing. They sold their land. They sold their bodies just to get food, brothers and sisters. We are here. And then they bowed down and they worshipped. Bow down before Joseph. That's what they're doing, friends. And here comes the chief puppet master, way back in 2014, saying the same.
Io ho la nostalgia che questa separazione
Read the words.
finisca.
I want
Che ci dia la comunione. Io ho nostalgia
union,
di
embrace by all churches and nations.
Nel quale parla la Sacra Scrittura.
The
Quando
brothers
i
were hungry,
fratelli
starving.
di Giuseppe, affamati,
Jacob's sons,
sono andati a Egitto
they went to Egypt to buy food.
per comprare,
But what happened? What
per
happened?
poter mangiare. Ma andavano a comprare,
They had money,
avevano i soldi, ma non
but they
potevano
couldn't
mangiare
eat
i
the money.
soldi.
That's it.
E
But they found their brother. Come
hanno
back
trovato
home.
qualcosa più del
Come back
pasto.
home.
Hanno trovato il fratello.
So create.
Tutti noi abbiamo
Enough of you, Mr. Antichrist. Create the crisis. Create the starvation. Create the economic collapse. Then what happens? The people now will turn to whoever stands up as the great problem solver, the man of sin, brothers and sisters. The man of sin, there it is, Revelation chapter 13. All right, are you seeing it now, friends? You won't be able to buy or sell. That's where we are. That's why I'm telling you, it's time for practical preparation. The 5 keys of survival. And the second key is country living. That's it. And don't you forget the book I'm speaking of, the book Ministry of Healing. That chapter, help for the unemployed, help for the homeless. Don't read that book as if you're reading a novel. Please, friends, please. I'm begging you, study that chapter. Study it. And friends, you know what? That's where we are going to put it to a close. And by God's grace, we will return tomorrow for midday power surge at 12 noon p.m. Eastern time. Let's be found prepared. Amen, my friends. Let's be found prepared. The protest continues. Maranatha.